Today on Locked On Rockies, why should you root for the Rocks?
You are Locked On Rockies, your daily Colorado Rockies podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Rock on Rockies fans, welcome into the Locked On Rockies podcast for today, the 30th day of December in the year 2024. I'm your host of the Locked On Rockies podcast, Paul Holden, bringing you your daily Colorado Rockies talk right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where you can find your team every day. If your team is the Colorado Rockies, guess what? You're in the right spot, because that's what we do around here each and every day, free and streaming on your favorite streaming services, bringing you your daily Colorado Rockies talk and diving into your comments, your thoughts, your Rockies hot takes over on the Locked On Rockies YouTube channel, where you can be part of the show. You can fire off those Rockies hot takes. You can let me know what's on your mind when it comes to the Colorado Rockies. Their best way to interact with the show is right there in the Locked On Rockies YouTube comment section. That's where all the Rockies fans are hanging out. And we're talking about Rockies fans yet again today, because I had an interesting little thing. I got tagged in an interesting tweet, and we're going to dive into that and more on today's episode, as well as maybe a little under the radar signing that the Rockies made, and for that bullpen there, and a trait that might stand out to, maybe it's one of those ones we're looking too far into the weeds and, maybe trying to, again, deal with our copium or hopium that we've been talking about here. But it's an interesting thing to at least think about, and an added wrinkle here as we are in the middle of the baseball offseason. Yes, other teams certainly making moves and getting better. The Rockies, not so much, maybe, but we'll talk about that. At least one signing they've made. And I'm going to also bring up another interesting point from Patrick Lyons, who we're going to read a tweet from later on, to kind of set the stage for tomorrow's episode, I think, because we're not going to have a time to dive into that idea as much as I think that we will need. So before we do that, gotta let you know that today's episode is our second to last of the year. We're going to have one more, and then it'll be another new year, and we will be in, what was that, only one full month until we will have official Rockies baseball action going on. Pretty exciting stuff. But so I wanted to bring this up. I wanted to bring up this interesting thing I was tagged in here, because this is from a listener here, Danish Sports Nut. Apparently does some traveling, looks at some stuff, and is basically asking, should he switch his loyalties, his allegiances to the Colorado Rockies? And while I think it's a big question, right? Because I don't really know it's the best way to answer this question for any team across any sport. For me, sports fandom has been so tied up in personal identity, where I grew up, and so much there. Like, the reason I am a Rockies fan and I love the Rockies as much as I do is because I grew up going to games. I had access to a season ticket plan with other families. I went to, I just loved Rockies baseball for basically my entire life. It's one of the key connecting points with my growing up with my dad and everything. So to answer the question of should you just hitch your wagon, or hitch your sports fandom to the Rockies wagon is way more loaded, because it's like I think I have a perfect example of this, really. Actually, I had a friend of mine who was not a baseball fan really at all. I mean, didn't necessarily did not like the game, but certainly was never tuning in to watch and follow a team. But the reason he got so into it when we lived together for a little bit and living, this was at a time finishing up college, and this was right when the Rockies were on the bounce up. This is right. I showed him. He got a glimpse of it with the Arenado, and Story DJ playoff team and that stuff. And then I lived with him again during the pandemic, and that's really where it took off, when he had the, nothing else really going on. So he became a Rockies fan. But because his life has gotten so busy, on a personal level, it's easy for him. It was easy for him to fall out from his Rockies fandom. He's still he'll still call himself a Rockies fan, loves going to the games, loves watching it when he can. But he quickly fell out of it. And I feel like that would be the case for most people that aren't directly connected to this team. I don't know if there's an easy way to just say, like, this team is a total. If you want to buy in on the ground floor of something that could be really cool, the Rockies are a great team. Now's a good time to get in on Rockies fandom, this year especially. If you're a person, though, that is looking for a team that operates in a way that's kind of makes sense more often than not. And again, I do like to put the disclaimer. I'm no front office guy. I am a passionate fan. I don't know all the ins and outs of baseball. But the Rockies have a really frustrating history with the front office. The Rockies have a really frustrating history with stagnation, with the same old song and dance. So asking if you're, and especially because the commenter said that they're switching from Houston to Colorado because part of it is they like to go travel. And hey, you're not going to be, if you can make it back and you can travel to Coors Field every summer, you're going to enjoy that every single time. No doubt about it. If that's the big selling point, boom, you're in. But for the product on the field, for the organization itself, it is not one that is easy. It is not one that's easy to be a passionate fan about. And I say that because throughout most of its history, there have been longer stretches of just straight up losing or bad baseball than there have been long stretches of winning and successful baseball. And it's become few and far between. And it's a team that there's so much possibility surrounding it, but they never act in. So that's kind of a lot of just like word vomit at you, I suppose. I don't know. I don't know if you're listening, but I'm sure you are. But that's what makes it so confusing to answer that question. And the question of, should you become a Rockies fan? Yes, if you know what, if you like the players, if you like the guy, if you're interested in the team, if you like the color purple, like, go for it. But if you're a sports fan that really cares, a sports fan that when you wrap it up and it's part of your identity and you like actually follow the team, right? Watching games, paying for the streaming service, paying for tickets to go to the game, XYZ. It is a bit of a frustrating experience. It's a frustrating experience because of how outmatched the team has looked on the field at certain points throughout going back multiple seasons now, at least the last 6. It's frustrating to see wasted potentials. It's frustrating to see a doubling down of stuff that hasn't been shown to work. So I guess I think if you're looking to bring on Rockies fandom, and I'm not doing a great job of selling it, I understand it, but that's part of the gig. And because for me, like, I have the connection, but why I stick with it, in addition to running a show, because I think this is something I that everydayers at least know, but maybe you're checking out the show for the first time or you're a new listener. Like, whether I host this show or not, whether I do this show or not, I am watching or listening on the radio and consuming and following at minimum 150 games a season. I've done it my whole life. I love watching baseball. I love listening to baseball. And I love especially listening to the Rockies. But it's gonna be worth all of this frustration, and why I hold on to all this. It's gonna be worth it if they ever do win the World Series. Because this is the cheesy, this is full cheesy homer mode right here. Let me put the disclaimer right here. Like, I might have been young, but I will never, ever, ever forget 2007. Ever. Like when you are talking about foundational memory moments in time in my life, like something that like I can transport myself, suck myself, out of the normal and just put myself right back where I was when I was younger, watching the October run. I can do that. I remember how much everywhere bought in. I watched Rocktober games in my classrooms. We were watching World Series games. Or most playoff games. I apologize. So that's the driving thing, right? Because I don't want to miss out on that opportunity. Because you want to know what else felt great? The Rockies going to the playoffs in back-to-back seasons. The Rockies being a competitive team. The Rockies finally being the team to making some noise. When that happens, when those moments, as few and far between as they have been, when the Rockies are good, when the Rockies are successful, it is like nothing else in my sports fandom and what I care about. I love the Broncos. I've loved the Super Bowl. I've loved football, and I was brainwashed as a kid to liking New England sports, and I was all about Tom Brady and stuff. I have watched greatness in other areas, and I've watched, these other teams and other things be dominant, and Jokic and Nathan McKinnon. Like, it's so cool to, and I think Nuggets fans can relate to Rockies fans a lot in that sense, and in the sense of, like, even with how frustrating this year, but getting that title year and having the Jokic years, like this, that's what it's all been for. Mixed with all the other great, there has been greatness in the past of the Nuggets, but not to that level. So I don't want to miss out on that. And so I'm bought in forever, like there's a chance I never see it again. That's what makes the World Series so special. That's what makes winning the playoffs and getting there, expanded or not. If you get to the World Series, that changes. I mean, that is another level of everything. I will, this is no exaggeration for me. The best thing that can happen in my sports fandom is the Colorado Rockies winning a World Series. There is nothing that I cheer for or root for or teams that I follow or sports that I'm passionate about or anything else. One of the key milestone entertainment and honestly part of my identity thing. I mean, it's crazy to say this, and I totally understand how goofy this sounds. So please know that I get how funny this sounds. Like, the Rockies winning the World Series would be life-changing for me. Again, I know how crazy that is, but it's just like, when I think of the sports team that I care the most about, it is the Rockies. Even with all of their flaws, even with all of their frustrations, I'm still rooting for this team above any other team. But on the other side of that coin, it's like, but that doesn't mean I'm not frustrated and not disappointed and not upset and not understanding of people losing interest in the team, not wanting to go to games, not wanting to buy tickets. Like, that stuff is real. Because if you want to keep the fans, if you want to keep the interest, because you got me hook, line, and sinker, you don't have to worry about me. But it's all the other fans. It's all the other people that want to spend more time at the ballpark during the summer, but actually watching the games and enjoying it and watching competitive baseball, not just for a night out on the town. You got to do more as an organization to entice those fans. You got to do more in order to bring those people into and keep them there. Because the Rockies are lucky that I love baseball, and I grew up from Colorado, so it's like, okay, but how do you get these other people, these people that are interested in this team and are interested in young players and an up and coming team and making some noise and getting in on the ground floor or rooting for someone? You have to invest in the product and invest in the team. And the Rockies haven't done that. So it's not a big surprise to me when people lose interest in the team. So kind of a crazy long-winded answer there, but I'm curious though. Let me know, why do you root for the Rocks? What makes you rooting for the Rocks? Let's talk about this under the radar signing here. Coming up in segment number 2. Is it an under the radar signing, or are we just getting our hopes up because it's at least one little bit of Rockies news? I'm gonna focus in on a little bit of a stat line that'll be interesting here. That might at least raise your eyebrows a little bit. We'll talk about that coming up next on today's episode of Locked On Rockies. Before we do that, though, got to tell you about the folks that help make this show possible, and that includes Rocket Money. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. Basically, it's a way for you to do a little double check and a little refresh on any streaming services, subscriptions, things that you might have signed up for, maybe free trials and stuff like that you might have let slip by. They can help you monitor everything, as well as other tools to get the most out of your money. It brings everything together in one place, whether it's subscriptions, your spending habits, or even the goals you want to hit this year. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all of the app's premium features. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/lockedon. And again, this is a nice, helpful tool, especially around this time of year when how many streaming services have you signed up to try to watch the content that you've wanted to watch? Go to rocketmoney.com/lockedon today. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon, rocketmoney.com/lockedon. This is the Locked On Rockies podcast for free and streaming on your favorite streaming services, bringing you daily Colorado Rockies talk right here on the Locked On Podcast Network and on the Locked On Rockies YouTube channel. For your second listen of the day, go check out Locked On MLB with our guy Sully, breaking down all things in the world of Major League Baseball. So go check it out there. For your second listen to that second listen, we got so much great Colorado sports coverage on the Locked On Podcast Network. Locked On Broncos, man, what a ride right now for the Broncos. Ups and downs, the emotional roller coaster there. Locked On Nuggets, Locked On Avalanche, Locked On Buffs. So much going on in the world of Colorado sports, so don't miss out. We got you covered here on the Locked On Podcast Network. All right, so Rockies adding Diego Castillo on a minor league deal here. He's got an invitation to the Major League camp, I believe. Let me double check on that. Yeah, there includes an invitation for Castillo to attend Colorado's Big League Spring Camp. All right. So here's from Mark Polishuk on MLB Trade Rumors. Castillo is best known for his 5-year run as a workhorse in the Rays and Mariners bullpens from 2018 to 2022. As the righty posted a 3.12 ERA, 28.1% strikeout rate, 50.7% grounder rate, and 8.9% walk rate over 259 and 2/3 innings and 250 appearances in that span. Unfortunately, got off to a very rough start in his first 8 games and 8 2/3 innings in 2023, leading the Mariners to outright him off their 40-man at the start of May. Then he was at the AAA for the rest of the year. So initially, when you just go right there, he got signed and released near spring training, was with the Twins. Let's see. I was just seeing if there's anything else. Here's the big, this big focus thing I'll talk about. The interesting note about this is a veteran guy that has appeared in bigger situations. So again, not a signing that's going to shock the world. It's not a signing that's going to overly cost the Rockies a bunch of money and or commitment years wise. But this is a type of move where I'll sit here and say, all right, I'll see what happens. Again, I'm not sitting here being like, all right, applaud it. But this is a guy that's had success. This is a guy that has appeared in big moments in the postseason. Here's from Patrick Lyons. Castillo has a 3.20 ERA over 7 big league seasons with most of the Rays and Mariners, including a 0.98 ERA in 17 postseason games. Again, really small sample size. Totally understand that. But it's a guy who was successful in big moments and big situations. What were the Rockies horrendous at? as a bullpen last year in those situations. This gives you a guy that maybe he's not a closer. Maybe I don't imagine that closing is probably the main focus of this for the Rockies. But does this give you another veteran guy who can be successful in the bullpen? Absolutely. Rockies love a ground ball rate. And 50.7, 50% ground ball rate. That's right up the Rockies' MO. We talked about it on the Senza pod, how important it will be. We'll see how much of an impact this defense has with these ground ball pitchers, and a 28.1% strikeout rate. Great news here. However, control is the biggest issue, and this is, again, back to Rockies signed Diego Castillo to Miners deal, Mark Polishuk on MLB trade rumors. Control is the biggest issue behind Castillo's decline, as his walk rate has shot up to 14.92% over 84 and a third innings of AAA ball over the last 2 seasons, and 17.9% in his brief MLB sample size of 18 and 2/3 innings. A velocity drop may have also been partially responsible for Castillo's struggles in 2023, specifically, though his fastball ticked upwards from 93.8 in 2023 to 95.9 in 2024. That shoots all the warning signs up there of the issues of the Rockies bullpen. Like, if there is something that I hate more than strikeouts, maybe this might be it. There is nothing I hate more than a leadoff walk in the 7th, 8th, or 9th inning. And golly, did it feel like the Rockies were leading off walks late in ball games, and that was what spelled disaster. The Rockies cannot afford control issues next year. Just plain and simple. Cannot afford control issues. It's just, again, if this is going to work, if you're going to be successful at Coors Field as a pitcher, you have to succeed in keeping the ball on the ground or being able to miss bats and be strike people out. Plain and simple. The Rockies cannot afford to have a bullpen of people that have control issues, and that is potentially what's facing them. And it was a massive issue in 2024. So for the Rockies to again sit there and be like, all right, we're taking a flyer on a guy, and for those to be the issues, it's just kind of like, oh boy. Like, especially during AAA play, there's things to be concerned here. So maybe it's not like this crazy under the radar signing that's gonna drastically change the world, but a veteran bullpen arm that has success, 50% ground ball rate, when a guy that if he does his job is going to contribute to the Rockies and be someone that the Rockies can turn to later in ball games instead of having to solely rely on just these young guys. And again, we'll see what happens for health for everybody as we go into the next year. What does it look like with Vodnik getting this work? What does it look, how will it shake out? Not necessarily a move I'm overly blown away with, but a move that could bolster the bullpen a little bit in a low risk environment. Not going to be too upset about that. Want to dive into just a little small thing, kind of set the stage maybe for tomorrow's episode as well, because this is an interesting little nugget from Patrick Lyons, and I'm curious what this means. And what this thinks, or what this thinks, what you think, how you read into this, and it totally relates to our topic to start the show as well. We're gonna do that coming up in segment number 3. This is the Locked On Rockies podcast, for free and streaming on your favorite streaming service, bringing you your daily Colorado Rockies talk right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Thank you so much again for making us your first listen of the day. Check us out on the Locked On Rockies YouTube channel. So I wanted to bring up this tweet here, and this is why I want to set the stage for tomorrow, because I want to give you all an opportunity to let me know what you make of this. Patrick Lyons. Over the past 6 off seasons, the Colorado Rockies have signed only one free agent to a multi-year contract. 2020, none. 2021, none. 2022, Chris Bryant, 7 years, $182 million. 2023, none. 2024, none. 2025, none. It's so it's really eye-opening when you see that, right? And again, it's rebuilding, right? But that's how long it's been since they punted. Since they moved on from Arenado, it was clear the plan was to lean on Bryant. It was clear that was and then after the Bryant thing, I think what we've learned now, I think, is the Rockies showing a hesitancy here after the flurry of extensions that they signed. Mixed with Chris Bryant, this team was sitting there and probably seeing the writing on the wall on regional TV. But it just kind of it bums you out a little bit, right? To go back to the point, like, why root for the Rockies? This is a team that signed one free agent to a multi-year deal in 6 seasons. You know, like it's 6 off seasons of minor league deals, of some trades, and this it's a complete lack of embrace of bringing in some interesting things. It's amazing that the lack of change that happens in the front office, the lack of looking outside for solutions, it appears that's here in the minds of signing free agents. Because, like, say what you will, man, if you sign a good free agent, you sign a free agent that's got some history, you spend some cheddar on free agent, you're signing a commodity that I shouldn't say commodity, but you're signing something that has more value overall than banking solely on prospects. And the Rockies have just burnt themselves so many times with their willingness to just throw the bank at people and offer them these huge contracts that they're probably hesitant to do so, in which the Rockies are approaching next year. The Rockies have to spend. Like, truly, if you're going to buy into what you have on this roster right now, what the guys you have in development and all that timeline, it ain't going to be enough next year. And if they all take the steps forward that they're hoping, you have to sign people. And you're going to have to sign them for multi-year deals if you want to get some of the big fish. And the Rockies need more big fish. The Rockies need a bat that can just send fear into the heart of any pitcher and any lineup. The Rockies are going to need to get into the sweepstakes for some of these exciting guys. Or else, again, they will do what they've done for most of their existence. Be stagnant. Be stuck in the past, stuck with convinced that the only way forward is their way and not anyone else's. On a different note, you could look at it as just a team that's completely reevaluating things year by year at this point. I don't know, but it's just an interesting wrinkle. Only one free agent signing of more than a year. What does that say about the team? What does that say about everything? What does that say about wanting to play here? And there were a lot of comments on Patrick's post. So let me know what's on. What do you make of that? And we'll dive a little bit more into this tomorrow as well, because I'm curious to see what you Rockies fans have to think about that. All right, folks, that is going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Rockies. Thank you so much for making us your first listen of the day. We're free and streaming on your favorite streaming services. And for your second listen of the day, go check out Locked On MLB with our guy, Sully. We got you covered here with plenty of Colorado sports coverage. Locked On Broncos, Locked On Avalanche, Locked On Nuggets, Locked On Buffs, free and streaming as well. Folks, until next time, this is Paul Holden saying so long from the Locked On Rockies podcast.